took a minute.
There we go.
All right, we should be in. Just make sure.
Or does it start right at 4:30?
Yeah.
I think we're live. Let me make sure.
I saw it.
Are we live? Let's find out. This is a lot. Oh, we're live. Yay. Okay, awesome.
All right.
All right. Excellent. Y'all can see us. Y'all can see us, right? Okay, appreciate the patience. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So first off, thank you all for your patience there. We are having technical difficulties since we are on a certain platform. I'm not going to say where those technical difficulties came from. But yeah, again. But thank you again. This is Breaking into Tech Pre-Sales and Tech Sales edition. And you all just got the first taste of what it is to be like in the technical world. We always got to have a backup plan, right? So we appreciate it. So because we are literally 30 minutes behind schedule, we do have some people who have other things that they need to do. So we're going to switch up the agenda just a little bit. So first things first, my name is Aaliyah Olds. I'm the host of this event. And I come from the HR world, the HR and project management world. So I do not have a technical background. And one of the motivations for doing this event was because I've had a lot of success with just networking with many of the individuals that you see on this call, and a lot of you who have attended and invited other individuals. And I kind of got success within getting offers and interviews pretty early in my journey. So I learned about pre-sales or tech sales from my co-host Denzel. He wanted me to be a SDR and maybe following his footsteps to be an account executive. But as I started to dig a little bit deeper into the ins and outs of the tech sales world, I learned about pre-sales, and I was like, this is exactly what I do like right now. So in my career, I function as like a project manager, and I sat with a lot of leaders, did what we would call discovery calls. I did presentations, demos, all that good stuff. Worked with a lot of HCM software, and the list goes on. So happy to have you all here. Really quick, I did get a lot of interviews and a lot of offers. Not a lot of offers, I wish, but a few offers when I first started my journey. None of them were great, so I'm still looking for employment now. That is a shameless self-plug. So y'all hit me up. All right, Denzel.
Hey, everybody. Denzel Scott here. Initially started in tech. I was actually a chemistry teacher. Decided one day that I did not want to teach kids no more. That was not my thing. And apparently they thought the same thing as well. So I made the decision to actually start my master's in cybersecurity and cloud computing. Decided rather quickly after paying about $40,000 for half of an education that wasn't really where I wanted to be. And got lucky enough to have a friend who worked at RedHat as a SDR, who eventually became an account manager, who referred me for a position as an SDR at RedHat. Did that for about a year and a half, and then eventually matriculated into becoming an AE at various other technology companies. Currently working in the cybersecurity space, and really enjoying it. And hopefully you guys will be able to glean a little bit of information from myself today and the other individuals who are on the call. I am co-hosting this with Aaliyah, and we're going to just go down the line here, introducing the other panelists who are going to be able to give a little rundown of who they are. We're going to start with Andrew Cordisco, and then we're going to go down all the way to Harrison in that specific order. I'm not sure if you guys are in the same order that I see on my screen. So the order is going to be Andrew, then Dominic, Kimberly, Jordan, Tamara, and then Harrison.
Okay. Great. Hello, my name is Andrew Cordisco. I've had the privilege of working with Denzel at RedHat. Our careers intersected there, as Denzel said, for about a year and a half. Currently SDR manager, but my career in tech spanning over 10 years, SDR, AE, SDR manager, as I said before. And I've really been able to see that part of the process, that part of the pipe gen, and happy to give my perspective there. Thank you for having me.
And hi, everyone. Dominic Gomes. I'm a senior solutions consultant for the enterprise space at Zendesk. I'm based out of the Bay Area. I've been in the tech industry since 2010. I studied political science and thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I was like, yeah, I don't want to go to school anymore. So I actually started off on the SDR side and then went way down the post sales. So I did implementation, I did customer success, I did all of that type of stuff. And then I came back to pre-sales actually within the last 3 years. So it's kind of fun how it all goes full circle. So really passionate about people, really big on mentorship. I know some of the folks on this I've talked with before in the past too as well. So looking forward to the conversation.
So my journey looks a little bit different than the gentlemen that have spoken before me, and a little bit closer to kind of where Aaliyah's journey I know is going to lead her. But my name is Kimberly Wall. I'm the sales engineering team lead with NeoGov, NeoEd, Power DMS, baby brands that maybe mean something to some of you all. But we provide public sector software for HR, applicant tracking, HRIS, performance management. But I spent 12 years in public sector HR and then survived the pandemic in public sector HR. But NeoGov was the happy place in my job. I loved the software. I was a huge cheerleader for the company and the products and was able to expand to that full suite over there. And then the Great Resignation hit, and I am one of those people that took the leap out of the safety of public sector and into private sector and sales engineering, applied for an implementation consultant, got that hard rejection of you're overqualified because they were hiring 5 people and I knew the products too well. And they approached me and said, hey, if you're interested in a pivot in your career from HR to sales, we've got a really good opportunity that we think your personality and your knowledge is really going to be of value to us. So now I get to be that cheerleader on the other end of the call, helping people see the value in our products and the solutions it's going to help lead them to through automation, and certainly has been critical during the pandemic. So looking forward to sharing some of those skills that I've been able to transfer out of public sector and into sales engineering.
Cool. This is awesome. I am Jordan. I am not in sales or pre-sales or anything like that. I have my own startup called 81 Cents, and we focus on helping underrepresented professionals negotiate their pay. So I'm here to talk about, how to think about your comp as you're making this career switch, and particularly how to make sure you're advocating for yourself throughout the process. And I'm excited to learn more about pre-sales and sales as well. So thank you all for having me.
Hi, everyone. I am Tamara Richards, and I am an associate SE or sales engineer at Seismic. And my journey, like everyone on the call, looks a little bit different. And that's one of the beautiful things about pre-sales. It's like, they say it's the best career you've never heard of. And I had no idea what pre-sales was until about maybe 8 months ago, and I was an opera singer before then. So my life looked completely different. I decided to take some of what I learned from being an opera singer and use those transferable skills, which you'll hear about, I'm sure, later on this call, and kind of pivot myself into this new role that I'm excited to tell you guys about. So if I can do it, you can do it too.
I like it. My name is Harrison Gillespie. I am located in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area, born and raised. My background is also a little different. I finished up school as a health and exercise science major, saw myself going down the medical field path, and did the frat thing and football and a lot of tough classes in undergrad, and essentially decided I needed a break from just the campus life, and thought I was going to do a 1-year job in the staffing world in technical recruiting in Raleigh. I was working for a company called Tech Systems, and I learned a lot about the tech industry. I did not plan on staying in it. But that was 10 years ago. And here I still am. I am now on the corporate side of things, working for Salesforce. But I've hired for companies. I heard RedHat mentioned earlier. I've hired for the education vertical, healthcare, financial services, professional services, a ton of companies all over RTP. And today I hire solely for Salesforce, and specifically within the financial services vertical for solutions engineering. And I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. So definitely looking forward to networking with you all and answering any questions. Would love to get as many people as possible into this industry. It's definitely great for a lot of people.
All right, awesome. Thank you all for that. So, really quick, cool background story about Denzel and I, and then even Harrison and I. So Denzel and I actually went to college together. And if I can share how we met, because I don't know if you matured past that point in life. Some men might be embarrassed about that.
Nah.
Okay with that? All right. Just had to ask for that. Okay, so yeah, Denzel and I, we went to college together, and we were actually a part of a modeling troupe. So he's a really good dresser, and he's pretty light on his feet as well. So I wasn't sure if he wanted to share that, but yeah, so we've known each other for quite some time. And Harrison and I recently met, but we actually cross paths a lot because he's a graduate of Wake Forest University, and Denzel and I are graduates of Winston-Salem State. So we probably bumped into each other a lot, just hanging out at our cousin campuses. And then also Harrison and I are both, well, I'm not a resident there anymore, but we both grew up in Durham, North Carolina. So really cool story there. But yeah, so of course, because we're running a little bit behind, we do have to switch up the agenda here. And we do have a very unique guest with us, Jordan Sales. So Jordan talked about her interest in helping underrepresented individuals learn how to negotiate and better advocate for themselves when it comes to their salary. So I want to be respectful of her time. And Jordan, if you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your mission, why you started that organization, and just give us a few different tips for those who may be in the interview stage or even negotiation stage.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to. And I think, one of the places where we see people, or where we often see people struggle the most, is when they are kind of pivoting from one industry into another, or from, a totally different sector that has nothing to do with tech, because tech compensation tends to work pretty differently than compensation in other fields. And so if you don't have a big network in that field, or it's unfamiliar to you, it can be challenging to figure it out. One example of that is around equity, which, if you're working at a tech company, is probably going to be something you'll see in your compensation. When I first moved into tech a number of years ago, they, gave me stock with my offer, and I didn't understand what it meant. I had heard that that was risky and might not amount to any value. And so I just ignored it in the negotiation. And then I spent like all of my negotiation power trying to get $5,000 more, which at the time was really meaningful. But that company that I joined, that I didn't negotiate the equity on at all, is still around like 8 years later. They're going to go public. The equity that I left on the table is certainly worth like $5,000 many times over. And so it's just, I think one of the reasons I'm really passionate about helping people who are switching careers in particular is because there's so many things you don't know. And I think something we often see in tech is that there's a lot of information and insight to those who have the networks and have the industry experience and are, at the boardroom table or in those conversations behind closed doors. But what about everyone else who doesn't have that same access? And so that's one thing I really care about. In terms of negotiation tips, I'll say that a thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is holistic compensation. So not just, it can be really tempting when you get an offer to focus entirely on the base salary, but I'm guessing that most people on the call here have pretty interesting compensation that's a mix of base and then performance-based compensation as well. And I think understanding how the performance-based component of your comp works can be really important, really meaningful, and ultimately really motivating. And I've been in some like really interesting negotiations where we're not even talking about the base salary. We're just talking about the whole bonus aspect of it. And then the last thing I'll say, because I know we've got a lot of panelists who want to chime in as well, is that a lot of times when you get an offer, they'll give you a deadline, like, we need to hear back from you by Friday. And at least for me previously, when I would negotiate, I would take that as fact. Just that is truth. I must respond by Friday, and that's it. And one thing that we've started to see more recently is that most times those deadlines are pretty flexible, and not just like another day or another 2 days, but we've literally seen people get another month or another 6 weeks to make the decision. That's a little bit of an extreme example, but I do think it's important, like when you're interviewing with multiple companies, the chances of lining up multiple offers at the same time it's really slim. And if you need another 2 weeks to collect all the information so that you can make the best informed decision for you, and so you can negotiate more effectively, that is completely doable. And so usually you can just make a case that like, hey, I'm really excited about this opportunity. I've got some more research that I want to do. And one tactic I love is like asking the recruiter to help introduce you to other folks at the company so that you can continue to do your research and also like buy yourself some more time in the process. So I will pause there.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Jordan. So something that's very unique in our space is that we've been told, and I'm actually really new to this space, so I definitely want to hear from everybody else as well. But we've been told to kind of have those conversations very early on. So when you're having that initial recruiter call from the industry that I come from, where it be HR and even project management, we don't really start talking about salary or comp until we're at the very end, into the offer stage. But coming into the tech sales world and even pre-sales, we talk about the comp very early because the interview process is so long. So can you talk about that and how we would answer that question when the recruiter says, well, so what type of salary are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that's coming up a lot lately because like salary transparency is a much bigger topic and different states have different regulations around that. But I would typically, what I recommend is don't answer the expectations question unless you actually know and have like really, really, really good data on what to expect, especially if this is your first tech role. Like chances are you're probably going to lowball yourself or not have totally complete information. So I usually recommend trying to punt on that question. And I really like saying something along the lines of, appreciate you bringing that up. Right now it's pretty early in the interview process and I'm still trying to get a feel for the role, the expectations, what it would actually be like at the company. So I'm still doing my research. If you have a range that you're hoping to stay within, that would be really helpful for me to hear. And I can let you know if that works for me.
How does that sound to you, Harrison, being that you are the recruiter?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I feel like you knew my mind was spinning when
I
heard this topic come up. I definitely have thoughts. I will speak as an interviewer as well as an interviewee. I myself was interviewing a year and a half ago. I do have the conversation on the front end. I think that it depends on the level of the role. Your confidence and as Jordan was saying, your confidence in understanding, have you done your research and do you understand what people that are also doing that role are typically compensated? And the good news is you can have those conversations now. You can use resources like LinkedIn to connect with other resources and ask them questions on the front end. So therefore you're prepared. And a lot of this stuff is online too. You have your Glassdoors and websites to make a lot of this information really public. I always tell candidates, I'm actually not allowed to tell you, I'm not supposed to tell you what our comp range is, but I always tell candidates, go research it. It's out there. If you come back and tell me what you find, I'll confirm it, I'll validate it. If it's wrong, I'll also tell you it's wrong. But a lot of our interviews are really competitive, and a lot of the interviewers are really busy. So the reason we ask that question is to avoid wasting anyone's time, both the interviewee as well as the interviewers who are stepping away from their jobs to actually do the interview. So the last thing we want someone to do is to make it, midway or to the end of the interview process, and then we're going back and forth about compensation. I actually never do that. So I have the compensation conversation every single time on the front end. And I usually don't have any issues with it because I try to be as transparent as possible.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Does anybody else have any other feedback before we move on to the next segment?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say another great resource out there aside from like LinkedIn or Glassdoor is repview.com. It is like amazing. Like I that is like anytime you're looking at a tech sales job, SDR, sales engineer or account executive, go onto that site because people post their, you have to actually post some data to get in there too as well. So there's really good stuff.
Yeah, review is awesome. What were you going to say, Andrew?
I was just going to say that for anybody that interviews for a role that has a good deal of variable compensation, something I'm always floored that never gets asked is how many people are on the team that I'm interviewing with? How many people on the team are at goal? Am I stepping into a role where somebody was successful before me? Was it a positive attribution situation? Was it a negative attribution situation? That's way more important than the salary. The salary is irrelevant. If you're going for any sort of sales job, it's irrelevant. If you're going to step into a role where you're a sales rep in the territory that the person before you hit 150%, that's your salary. The person before you hit 50% and they were put onto a plan and they're working at the company down the street, that's your salary.
Right.
So it's that question is never asked, ever asked back to me, and I want to scream it at them, but I give that nugget back to you guys. If you're interviewing for a sales role, you need to know if the chair you're stepping into is hitting goal or not.
That's right. Yep. So that's a great point, and that goes with what Dominic said about RepView. And I think I've seen that a few different times in the chat. It shows you how likely someone within that role is reaching total comp, because it really doesn't matter. So when the sales engineering space, we kind of have like a little bit of cushion because our base salary is a little bit bigger than what our OTE is. And even in some roles, we don't get OTE at all. So I don't know much about everyone else's role and how that is set up. But I know some positions, they just literally just have a base pay and that's it. Some you have certain metrics to reach. Some you'll get a compensation split. Commission split with whatever the account manager brings in. Does anyone have an interesting comp makeup that's on the pre-sale side that they wanted to speak about? You don't have to tell your salary, of course. It's just, just trying to show the different unique ways that it's set up.
Only other thing I was going to say is a lot of times, aside from base and base and commission, which makes up your like typical on-target earning, is like RSUs definitely play a bigger part in the the compensation game. If you're at a startup, it's going to be more of like options normally, but if you're at a public company, it's more as RSUs. So do your research on that, because like at first it's a little bit confusing. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, very confusing.
Okay.
The tax implications, yeah.
All right, and I know we were a little bit out of order, but we want to tell you also the difference between tech sales and pre-sales, because that's the purpose of this meeting here, right? So we have a lot of professionals that are on the pre-sale side, and we have professionals that have worked in both tech sales and pre-sales alike. So Denzel, you want to kick us off and tell us what it is to be in tech sales and what roles we can look for?
Sure. So tech sales, like she said, is a little bit different than the pre-sales motion, even though they are they're pretty intertwined, but they're very different at the same time. From a tech sales standpoint, your SDR, your AE, your account managers, your customer success managers, those are individuals who are going to be on the tech sales side. What I mean by that is that in terms of doing discovery, in terms of your prospecting and actually going out there forming relationships with customers, that's going to be all on the account executives as well as the SDRs who are going to be in charge of a specific territory and accounts. Me personally, I have worked in, and it will vary based off of the company that you're also with and what you are also selling. So, for instance, I worked at an organization where I did the demo as well as I did everything else from the full sales cycle. I didn't have an SE during my time at this organization. So there was no real delineation between pre-sales and tech sales. But then when I go to another company that I've worked for, where I was solely just doing prospecting and negotiations, closing deals, and things of that sort, that all fell on me, and I was able to kind of quarterback the actual deal itself by bringing in other resources like my sales engineer, or more specialized sales engineers who are only specific to a specific software within the organization that I'm actually selling. And it differs there between that and the pre-sales motion.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to tell you all a little bit more about pre-sales. So pre-sales is the like cousin, or I always call it the Scottie Pippen to Jordan. So Jordan is tech sales, and pre-sales is the Scottie Pippen. So if you guys aren't from that generation, I don't know what to tell you. Let me think of let's see, Shaq and Kobe, right? So Shaq would be pre-sales, and then Kobe would be tech sales. So we work hand in hand together. And I like basketball. I'm a Celtics fan, so that's why I made that reference. But we work hand in hand together to actually close the deal. But what the pre-sales professionals do, and that's where you'll see the sales engineers come in. You'll see sales engineers, pre-sales engineers, so many different names for that. But pre-sales and the sales engineers, they actually are the ones who are demonstrating the value of the software and the value of the product. Whereas the individuals, like the account managers on the tech sales side, they are setting up the meetings, the SDRs are, and then the account executives, they're actually closing the deals and setting up the compensation package. But what we do as sales engineers, we're sitting with the actual prospect, we're listening to their pain points to figure out what it is that they need help with within their companies. What issues are they trying to solve, right? We're not trying to sell them or anything. We're just trying to find what those issues are, and then draw that line of conclusion to how our software is going to solve that issue for them. But what we always try to do is tell people, sales engineers, to not put yourself in a position that you are the hero or your software is the hero, but that this is actually a tool to allow the client to be their own hero. You're solving your own problem. So it's like you are Superman and our software is your cape, or your Spider-Man, and this is your web to actually help you solve those problems, because they don't want you to feel like you're doing everything for them, right? Because you're really not the expert in their job. They do their job every single day. They just need something to help make it more productive. So that's what pre-sales does. And we sit on demonstrations and we actually walk through the different features of the software that is going to help them solve said issue. Does anybody else want to add to that? Dominic, Kimberly, anyone?
I'll let someone else go. I had a comment that I normally try to describe it. Like normally I would say the difference between tech sales and like pre-sales, in my opinion, they're both sales. Like, it's first and foremost, we are still salespeople. There was a guy at Salesforce that I worked with, and he would say that a sales engineer is a sales guy in disguise, and I always laughed at that, but it's always stuck with me because we should be doing things to get the deal done from a sales standpoint. So that's just one of the things that I always like to describe, is I feel like getting sales acumen is a very important part of the pre-sales job too, as well. So something I highly recommend.
Yeah, I think that's definitely kind of how our model works. The AE or the AM is going in and, introducing the products, trying to squoze that opportunity. And then at that point, the pre-sales professionals are brought in to get that technical win. Anybody that's read 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers, that, that term probably rings a bell with you. We're coming in to show them what it is that they need to see, through a value selling type of model. They know their processes, they know where their inefficiencies are, but we're coming in as kind of that cheerleader, like I mentioned before, but to show them where we can give them improvements to current processes or solve problems that they currently have, through streamlined and efficient software.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Tamara?
I mean, I think they said it all. I made a comment after Dom said, we are still salespeople. Someone described it as the ninja assassin, because we are still sales. And but we want people to trust us. You know, people are wary of salespersons. They see someone coming, oh, they're just trying to sell me something. And I mean, I've been in sales before, and in a way, that is what you're doing. They are held to a different standard. They have a quota to meet, and that is where most of their money comes from. So they are very focused on just making that sale. But what we do is try to make sure that that is the right fit. We are selling the value versus just the product and just the features. We want to make sure that they understand that we have a solution. And sometimes that decision, you may realize when you start working with people, you may think that this is not a good fit for that prospect, and then your AE or the account manager thinks that it is because they need that sale. So these are the kinds of things you'll get into discussion with and may have disagreements with, but your job as an SE or a solutions consultant is to be that advocate, in my understanding, that advocate for the client, making sure that in the long run, it's not going to be a bad fit, because guess what? That still affects your pipeline, or that still affects maybe a customer that churns. So you are there to essentially help them and help yourself, help everyone see how we can solve that issue or solve that pain point or challenge that they may have.
Great.
Yeah, I think in the world of, you know, I always say to the SDRs I work with, and Denzel probably heard this 100 times, right? Like, a sales professional has the same problem that a politician does, right? Like, your first job is to be like, hey, I'm one of the good ones. And it's really unfortunate, because sales is a noble profession. Sales is one of the greatest jobs you can have in the entire world. I really believe that, because you are a fundamental conduit between a problem that you have and an effective, sustainable process going forward. So if your SE needs to play bad cop, let them, right? Like, if SE wants to say, hey, the product doesn't do that. You know, that doesn't mean that you as a sales professional have to say, yeah, it does. Just don't look under the hood. You know, you can be consistent and you can have integrity, and you will win because you are the good politician. You're the politician who's actually doing this, right? I'm not just trying to get your vote. I'm trying to make your life better. People want to believe in that in a politician, and people want to believe in that in a sales professional. Don't make it harder than that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people's moods completely shift, or them sit back in their chair when I talk about the fact that I was a prior customer, you know, and so it's like, okay, this isn't somebody that's just coming in to sell me, you know, like, I can talk about my experience through implementation and having been a customer. And so it takes a little bit of that negative vibe away, because I am able to come in and share those personal stories. So for those people that are skeptic, you know, Andrew, it oftentimes, by leaning into my experience, really helps to build value and rapport with that prospect, because I'm not just another salesperson coming in to try to like sell it. I have the real life stories to back up what I'm showing them through the demo.
And people practice sales every day, right? Like they don't think about it, but they do it, right? Like, I was hiring a candidate, and I said, tell me about a passion you have and how you approach it. Person was like, hey, I love to go fishing. They put the bait on the hook, and they sit down on the dock. They have confidence that there's fish there, even if fish don't bite that day. I'm going to go back to that same spot tomorrow, and I'm going to get a fish. I was like, you'd make a hell of an SDR. Well, what's an SDR? Well, you don't need to know what an SDR is. You just need to have that process. Someone who bakes, you know, makes the right ingredients. It doesn't matter if the cake is terrible. I put the right ingredients in place. Eventually, I'll get good at baking, right? Think about how you are practicing the processes you're building in your daily life, and they lead to selling.
Andrew, that's the first thing I tell most folks is, like, I just use the term everything is sales. Exactly what you said. Like, everything you're doing is some form of a sale. You're selling yourself. You're selling your ideas. You got to be influential. That's sales.
Totally.
And to second that, like, that is one of the reasons why I actually chose pre-sales, or just to get into sales in general. I wanted to, when I decided to transition into tech, I wanted to be a UX designer. I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. And I was going to go to a boot camp and all of this stuff. But something that I started to think about, my circumstances demanded something else from me. And one of the things that I thought about, okay, what are some of your transferable skills? And maybe Aaliyah's going to get to this, but what are some of your transferable skills? What are some of the things that you have going for you already? And I was a singer, so I was used to selling. I was a product. I was used to selling. I don't want to say myself, but selling my voice, convincing people. Yeah, convincing people like, hey, choose me for this role. How did I position myself? How did I make sure that or convince people through my actions, through my voice, through my communication? So just like you guys were all saying, it's about being able to sell, and everyone sells. Everyone's a seller.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Ashley, I'm working on a deal now where my SE is actually leading the entire deal because the individual who we are selling to, when we met him in person, he immediately said before he knew which one of us was the sales guy is, I don't want to talk to the sales guy.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you.
And as soon as he said that, I knew to back up and introduce him to my SE, because at that point, this guy's going to be the individual who's going to make this sale for us, and that's just a part of being able to humble yourself in a role. Even though you're the quarterback of this deal, you have to be able to pull yourself back. And like they said, everyone's selling in this position, whether you're an SE, whether you're an SDR. The first person they speak to is how they're going to really determine how this further relationship is going to go between the point of now and the point of actually closing that deal.
That's a good point, Denzel. And I can't remember who I heard this from, but I heard that everything we do in life involves sales. So once you're actually negotiating, you always have a position in your life, whether you've been in a sales role or not, where you have had to sell something. You've had to convince somebody of something. You've had to persuade someone of something in every single role that you had, even down to even landing your position. Whenever you're in an interview, that is a sales skill that you're developing to be able to, show the value of who you are and what you bring in. Tamara talked about this very briefly, and this is actually what we want to talk about next is, what it means to build your personal brand, and how beneficial is that when you are going into your new career, especially when you're transitioning into a new field like tech sales or pre-sales from a non-traditional background like human resources, like being an opera singer, like being a teacher. So we want to definitely talk about that, and I want to highlight Dom and Tamara and myself, because I think we all have different brands. We all have different personal brands, but you can just tell that this is just authentically who we are. But I think it also has helped. I can speak for myself. It has helped a lot with just attracting interviews and potential offers and things of that nature. But the Leah that you see now, you're going to see, at my next concert, it's literally myself. And I always talk about, it's very important to be authentically you, because you're not going to attract everyone. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want to attract everyone. But whenever you're in a role or a position of being able to persuade someone of the value of your product, they're not really buying the product from you because they like the product the most. They're buying the product from you because they like you the most. Because there's another organization that I guarantee you sells the exact same type of software that you have. The only difference between those two is yourself. So I would love to hear more about your story, Tamara, and then we can hear from Dom.
Thank you, girl. And yeah, exactly. People buy from people they like. That's ultimately what it is. So quickly, to kind of give you some background, I was an opera singer. I was a teacher, and before I had my job, I was just a stay-at-home mom. I recently left. I had a situation, so me and my ex-husband divorced, and I found myself at a place where I was like, okay, I have to support my daughter and myself. What can I do? I had not worked for a couple of years, and I was trying to figure out how to best position myself. And the only way I knew how to do that was the way I did it when I was singing. And that's through networking and kind of developing a presence online. It wasn't to become an influencer or anything like that. or, you know, a LinkedIn brand specialist, but it was just because this is how I know, this is what I knew. When I was a singer, I had a website. I talked about who I was. I presented myself in a certain way, the way I wanted to attract, and I wanted to attract a certain people. And so what I did was, the first thing I did a bunch of research, and I found out that you have to optimize your LinkedIn. And what is that? Optimizing your LinkedIn. That is making sure your LinkedIn is sets you up for success. And that will include your picture. A picture says 1,000 words. That's what they say, right? So is your picture, does it represent you? Does it make you look like an old man? Does it make you look like an old woman? Or does it make you look like too young? Or do you look like you're a pleasant person to be around? And I shouldn't say make you look like an old man, not to be ageist, but does it age you? Make you feel like you're not like you don't have much life, you know? Those are little things that I took note of. And you don't have to get a professional picture taken. You can take it with your phone, your iPhone, and get on Canva and remove the background. Have a new picture. What about your header? Make that say something about what you want to do, and how you want to position yourself, and what you have to offer. That's the second thing. And I have talks with people all the time about how to actually make their LinkedIn an inviting place. People are not just interested in people who can do the job anymore. Yes, that's very, very important, but they want to know that they're going to be working with someone they like, and that someone who's going to represent them well. And so these are little things that I started taking note of. The second thing, before I hand it over to Dom, is the fact that I started saying network for the net worth, because networking is how I landed my role. And that is the truth. I believe I have tons of merit. However, I got my role from networking. I had tons of interviews. I saw someone earlier say that they had applied to over 50 jobs in the last day. I will say networking can decrease that, amount. I did not cold apply to any job. I was asked to, and this is not going to be everyone's story, and it's not to boast, but I worked my butt off to network, to make actual relationships with people, writing, messaging them, being involved, posting, sharing something about me, even though it's not what people would normally post. I would be vulnerable and post what I was thinking, and it brought people in. And because I posted about, I was pretty much insecure that I was a music person coming into tech, and I wanted to show how I could stand out. My boss saw that post and then commented in it, and then we both started talking back and forth. We had a conversation. The next month, he was like, "Hey, why don't you talk to this other person?" I had no idea it was an interview. I thought it was just a talk, and then it was an interview. And right after I finished Presales Academy, I think it was 2 weeks, I had a job. And this is not going to be everyone's story. There is tons of work. It's very hard work. But I can promise you, networking will make it a lot easier, because people, just like how they buy from people they like, they hire people they like. They hire people they know. And the last thing I'll leave with you is finding a great mentor. Dom is one of my mentors. I met him through Malachi, and you'll see him in the chat somewhere. I met him through Kai, and I started, I pretty much like latched on to all of these people who I trusted to give me great advice, to make sure that I knew what I was getting into. The talk that Jordan gave us, Dom talked to me about money. Like he had the most candid conversation with me about money, and making sure that I'm getting what I'm worth. And these are the kinds of people, one, they will advocate for you. They will connect you with hiring managers, or they may even have a job for you. So networking, I cannot stress it enough. Once you have optimized your page, you are ready to start networking and connecting, and not just connecting just to get a job, but actually making these meaningful connections that you can use and they can use, and it can be beneficial for both parties in years to come. And passing it over to you.
That's a hard,
hold on one second.
hard act to follow.
I want to say that was so good. That was so
good.
This is going to be recorded, you guys. So make sure you go back and listen to that, because everything she said, I completely resonate with. And make sure what you said, I think, was so key with making sure that you're not just networking for the sake of getting the job. You're literally trying to get to know these people. One thing that I do is I literally inbox like all y'all, like all these people. I inbox all of y'all, and I can see when you read my message too and don't reply. So but I inbox every person, and some people respond, some people don't. But I didn't do it like, oh hey, this is Aaliyah, la la. I literally looked at everyone's LinkedIn profile and found something about that person that I liked or I connected with or I resonated with, and I mentioned it. So that is sales right there. Like, I'm not even in the sales role, but that is sales right there, because you have to get someone's attention enough to even open up the message, So look for people who are active on LinkedIn, and then look for people who are not, but also who have their profile filled out, who may have a similar background. That is exactly how Kim and I met. We both come from HR. We both worked in the public sector. We both worked with that NeoGov software. I just told you how Harrison and I connected. Well, Harrison actually reached out to myself, but he connected with me because he's seen that I went to Winston-Salem State University. Go Rams. And then Dom, he's just a nice guy, and I may have met him through just seeing how active he is as well. And then I believe Tamara reached out to me before I reached out to her in the inbox, but we were communicating, we were engaging with each other on each other's posts. You would have thought we've known each other. So be authentic. I'm so serious about that. Like, people can smell bull crap. They can smell bull crap. I'm literally one of those people who can smell bull crap. And that is exactly why I individually handpicked all of these people, because they are genuine people who truly want to help others succeed. So before we continue, I just wanted to say thank you for that, Tamara. Those were like amazing gems. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Harrison, you had something?
Yeah. I just want to ditto everything that you all are saying. You all are hitting the nail on the head. Before I landed this role with Salesforce, the first thing I stated in my interview was, I just had my first child. I am newly married. We are in the process of building a home and we're moving. So I am not able to come into the office right now. And I coach high school football, and I have to get to practice at this time. If that's going to be a problem, this isn't a fit. And I was very spot on and said that just about with everyone that I talked with, to make sure that if I came and went at different times, it wouldn't be an issue. But I just wanted to make sure that they knew that these are the things I'm passionate about outside of just what I do. And I told them I'm really great at my job in addition to that. But from a personal basis, this is who I am. And these are the things that are really important to me. And this is what motivates me to get this great version of my work self. So if you can support these things, I promise you'll get the best version of me. And being able to communicate that confidently in your interview goes such a long ways, and just kind of removes that layer of, is this just another candidate? Or am I actually talking to someone that I know what I'm going to get from this person when I know that about them. So I just wanted to share that as I heard you all sharing your stories.
Yeah, and the only thing I would just want to say is, like, I wouldn't be on here if it wasn't for networking. Like, it's kind of crazy how it all happened. Like, it was literally Malachi threw out there, man. Like, you kind of started it for me. Like, I don't know, you made a post, and then Tamara, you reached out to me, and then Aaliyah reached out to me. And, I think every time that I talk with folks, so the other thing is for people that are in the industry on this call too as well, I want to just say, be open to these people that are inboxing you. And my take is, if someone adds you and then like sends like a message to you, respond back if you can. I know everyone's busy, but even 15, 20 minutes of your time for some advice is really helpful. Like, I'll give just two good examples, right? My guy over there, Shaquille Matherin, he posted something about like being on Breaking Bad, and I was like, oh my God, I had to talk with him. And I talked with him on Friday, and I was able to give him some good advice that's helped him out with some of these interviews that he's doing. So I would just say, like, the other thing I would just wanted to say too is, for anyone, when you guys get into there, just always pay it forward. Like, just make sure that, you remember where you were at. And if there's anything you can give to other folks, I think that's really important. So That's all I wanted to say.
And I just want to piggyback off of that, because that is the biggest thing, and that's why I think why we're all here. But paying it forward is the biggest thing. I had people who helped me. My boss, Ron and Warren, they helped me tremendously and still help me, like put me in front of the right people, giving me opportunities. Pay it forward, because at the end of the day, like, you know, someone may not have given you a chance. And so that's the biggest, anybody, when you get a job, that's the biggest thing you should do. Always help someone else, take someone else with you. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our values that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and it's one that Aaliyah and I talked about in our first conversation. It's vulnerability is courageous. When you have these people popping into your inbox, they're coming to you, they're wanting to connect with you. You know, you may have spent a day doing 10 demos back to back to back all day, and you're just brain dead. But if you take that time when you're sitting in bed trying to decompress, and you open up your inbox and you see those people have reached out to you, you know, take time. Don't just pop in one of those like canned responses that, you know, LinkedIn allows you to pop back. You know, like if you want to start with one of those and then type like another message, but there are folks that are submitting 50 different applications every day. Maybe you're getting rejections or not getting any feedback at all, and you feel like you're just, you know, beating your head against a brick wall when it comes to submitting those applications. So think about that. Be authentic, and take a few minutes to pay it forward. You know, return what somebody did for you, but they may be reaching out to you from a place of vulnerability, and it's just like, I'm just going to try one more connection, and for all you know, that could be the connection that leads to a job or to another connection, because, you know, I've met with Aaliyah and I don't have an opening right now, but she's you know, a great human being that has a lot of transferable skills. So when I see somebody else in my network that's hiring, I'm like, hey, did you know, have you been connected with Aaliyah? Like, you're able to just pass that on, because we took a few minutes to just engage with that person and learn a little bit about them.
I appreciate that. Thank you all. You guys have been great so far. Honestly, hope you all are really taking as much value from this conversation as I am. I definitely wanted to be respectful of everyone's time and kind of move along through the next part of the segment. And we wanted to talk about transferable skills. But before that, I'm going to answer a few questions on how do you know your LinkedIn is optimized and what that means. Optimizing your LinkedIn, and anybody else can chime in with this as well. It's literally just setting your LinkedIn up in a certain way that recruiters, hiring managers can find you easily. So one bit of advice that I see on a lot of people's page is they'll say aspiring XYZ. You want to take that off, because you shouldn't aspire. You should already be, because a recruiter is not looking for aspiring. Am I right, Harrison? I seen the hallelujah from Tamara. All right. So nobody's looking for someone who is aspiring. They're looking for someone who is. Okay. So you want to be an account executive, a sales development representative, etc., in your headline, and make sure that you're putting spaces in between, so that way it can be searchable, because LinkedIn is a database, and recruiters have something called LinkedIn Recruit. Some people don't. They just literally just search through the feed, and they'll look for account executives, sales development representative in Atlanta, account executives in, you know, Colorado. And they're not looking for those that are aspiring. You also want to start to study the job descriptions of the positions that you're looking for, and look for those key skill sets or keywords that keep popping up. So if you see, I talk about SQL a lot, because that's something that I'm familiar with, in Linux. I talk about HCM software because, of course, I come from the HR world. So all of those words are on my page somewhere, multiple times, honestly, because that is what I'm familiar with. And sometimes recruiters are even looking for those who have, you know, HCM software experience. They have SaaS experience. Okay. So those are ways that you could optimize. You also want to make sure that you have at least 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, because that allows you to pop up in recruiter's feed, hiring manager's feed. It just makes you look more credible. And then you also want to make sure your profile is completely filled out with all of the relevant skills for the industry that you're going for. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, make sure that you have that C++, the net, all that good stuff in your skill set. And if you can get endorsements from those in that field, do that. If you've never worked in that field, LinkedIn has a premium feature, and I believe they are offering a promotion that you can go and do LinkedIn Learning to get to do the little course on that, and you can add that to your skill set. So it shows that you took the time to learn those things. So those are all ways that you can optimize your page. And you could simply go to, and I'm gonna mention 3 people. This gentleman is not on the page, not on this slide, but we'll talk in the future. You already know Mr. Squirrel Guy. So go look at Malachi's page, look at my page, look at Tam's page, look at everybody's page who's on this call, and you can see some of these individuals like Denzel, Kim. Kim is a little bit more active, but Denzel and Dom, they don't really post a lot as much as Tamara and I, but they are getting found. And I guarantee you, even though they're employed right now, they're probably getting a lot of inboxes from recruiters all the time because their page is optimized. So you don't have to post a lot. And I wouldn't even encourage you to do that unless that's your personality or you actually have valuable content. And even to that point as well, make sure the content that you're putting out there is valuable to the industry that you're working in. So I talk a lot about, I give recruitment advice and, how to network and how to set yourself up for an interview. Why? Because I come from that space and I can speak to that. But also I want to be able to help everyone out so that they can make better decisions when they're networking. You don't want to inbox anybody and say, hey, can you be my mentor? I made a post about this the other day. Make sure that you are making a genuine connection with that person and you are asking them about their journey. And if they like you and you like them, it's going to naturally happen. I consider Kim one of my mentors. I consider Denzel a mentor. I consider Dom a mentor. I have a long list of mentors. But it's all because we built those relationships organically. And I think that'll move us on to the next segment if nobody else has anything to add to that.
One quick thing to add is
excellent.
when you're looking at that, when you're looking at your job descriptions that you've had previously before, and you're looking at some of the roles that you are applying for, look at the job descriptions. I believe Tamara said this earlier. Look at those job descriptions of that role that you want to actually get in and design the job descriptions. Even if you are not an SDR, look at how they wrote some of those descriptions on those, whatever they're called for those job descriptions. And then try to match that to some of the things that you've done in your previous role. Like when I was a teacher, even though I had never sold anything, I would speak as if like the grades that some of my students would obtain, like I was able to, help students obtain this specific level by doing these specific actions, and that's just taking metrics and putting the action that I did to it so that when recruiters or SDR managers are looking for, how can you explain these things that you've done that relates back to the job, you are able to look back at your job descriptions on LinkedIn or look at the story that you are able to tell and use some of those metrics to show that you are able to do the job based off of what you've done before. And that's literally how when I did start to interview, how I kind of framed everything of, well, you don't have sales experience. Well, I do, because I've been selling education to kids who don't want to learn for the last 3 years, so, and they were proficient by 80% in this. So obviously I was selling them something, and that's how that's how I kind of framed that to make myself more marketable. And that's what it really comes down to. You want to be able to market yourself to these managers and to these SDR managers or to SE managers in a way that, you're different than everybody else.
Great point, Denzel. And again, as you see, a lot of us have come from different backgrounds, but the whole purpose of this live here is just to show you all, no matter which background you come from, you do have transferable skills that you can highlight. So definitely make sure you all play that back what Denzel said. Make sure you pause, take notes on that. But it's very important to be able to even practice. Don't just go to the interviews and wing it, right? Practice those answers to those questions that are going to naturally come up, like why would you like this role? How do you see yourself fitting into this role? Or even looking at that job description to see, have you ever had an experience demonstrating software or public speaking? I'm sure you've done a lot of those things within your role as well, your previous role. So just find creative ways to highlight that there. And as we move into the next part, talking about interview tips, I wanted to really answer this question that popped up a little bit early, and I think you can answer this. And Denzel, can you tell us the difference between an account manager and an account executive?
Yeah, so account managers are individuals who are nurturing deals that, or nurturing accounts that are already pretty much set for the organization. So these are going to be some of the accounts that, there's already been a sale made, and now you're trying to upsell some of those opportunities. Account executives, it's a little bit different. So you can be a net new account executive, or you can be, someone who does renewals. So you can be specifically based off of just, new business or white space where there hasn't been a sale made to those specific accounts, or you can be trying to specifically work deals that have not yet matriculated into the organization. Account managers are typically a little bit more senior level sales individuals who might work with much larger accounts.
Thank you. And someone asked, did any of you change your title on LinkedIn to an account executive or sales engineer while you were still with your current employer? This may be because someone is employed and they're worried about optimizing their LinkedIn.
I did, but that's because I already knew that I wanted to be a sales engineer. I did have a little stint as an SDR for 6 weeks. Stint for sure, because I didn't stick at it. But in that whole time, I was still, trying to become a sales engineer. My content was geared towards that. Would I recommend that? I don't know. But I know I knew what I wanted. I knew where I saw myself in the future. Even if I stayed at that company, I would have wanted to move. That's where my North Star was. I wanted to be a sales engineer. And so that is kind of what I based my content around. And I think it's okay to change your title. I mean, are you married to the job that you're in now? Are you afraid they're going to fire you because you're looking for a job? I don't know if that's legal, is it? I mean, is it legal? It's just
depends on what state you're in.
Oh,
you're in an at-will state or not. Let me dust off those crazy HR skills real quick. It just depends on where you're at, what your legal compliance items are. But if you're in an at-will state or you're in an at-will contract, I mean, essentially, if they don't like the color of your hair, they can fire you. Now, not to say that you couldn't fight it or take it to Department of Labor or unemployment, things like that, if you feel like it's an unjust or there just was some type of bias or anything there. But at-will definitely adds a complexity into the firing.
Into all of that.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, and that's an important thing to note. So not to scare you all from optimizing your LinkedIn, right? Because you can still optimize it in multiple ways. I think I've shared with one of my mentees before who had that same fear that you can still put, pre-sales professional or pre-sales engineer or solutions expert, whatever. You can be very vague about, what industry you're going into, in addition to having the title that you're in. So say, for instance, you are a quality assurance, specialist. You can have quality assurance specialist and then the little space bracket, and then you can say solutions expert. That's not really saying sales engineer directly, but I guarantee you that recruiters are looking for that as a title as a sales engineer, or just the word solution in general. So you can be creative with a lot of those different titles, specifically for pre-sales and sales engineering. There's one frustrating thing that happens within our industry is there is a long list of multiple different titles that mean the exact same thing.
Exactly.
The most common sales engineer is the main one, right? Then you have solutions engineer, then you have solutions consultant, solutions expert, and then you also have pre-sales engineer, pre-sales consultant. And those are the main ones that you're going to see, but there's a long list. But the way that you can easily find those on sites like LinkedIn, Indeed, and other job search engines is just by looking for those keywords like solutions or demonstration, product demonstrations, or things of that nature, things that that a sales engineer does. That is a helpful tip there. Okay. All right. So I wanted to hear from everyone. We just want to hear a few interview tips. Like, how did you all prepare for your interview, specifically our account executives, also any of our SEs? How did you prepare for your interview, and what are some things that you would like to share with our audience?
If I can jump in here on this one first. We've talked a lot tonight about practicing and being prepared with our answers. But I think if I could give you all one piece of advice, it's come prepared with your questions too. I think one of the most powerful questions that I asked in my interview was, can you tell me what success looks like in this role at the 90-day mark and the 1-year mark? Like, I want you to tell me what success looks like, because then I'm going to be able to align with whether I feel like I'm going to be able to be successful. Is that a realistic expectation? Or even just clarifying questions. I was new to sales. Sales was not something I had done since I worked at a gym selling tanning packages, 20 years ago. So for me, I think knowing that you've read the job description, you've done the research about our company or about the role, but also coming with your questions, I think is also very powerful and shows a level of organization and maturity, and that you're really bought into this time that we're investing in the interview process.
Yeah. Another one that at least from the pre-sale side, that I always find interesting, and I know I've told this to a couple of folks who've been on the call, like my whole perspective on being a sales engineer is that your actual main customer is your account executive. So if you really, really want to, I feel like, stand out, I've heard people even ask like, hey, can I talk with one of your AEs to understand the people that you're going to be working with, because that relationship is very important. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of people just think, oh, you're going to do, a team member meeting, and then you're going to do a demo. But like, if you talk about, hey, what's it like working with the salespeople in the sales process, I feel like that helps you stand out, because you're thinking more like a salesperson too as well. And that's what you have to do in these things, is also always ask about the next step in the process. Like, that's very, very important.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that as well. So something that helps me is doing the research. So I think Tamara spoke about this earlier, where she said she didn't have a lot of interviews or a lot of offers because she was able to narrow it down and pretty much got interviews and offers passively. So with my experience, I did a little bit of both. I've gotten interviews passively that turned into offers passively, but I've also still done the work to kind of apply to roles. But I was very strategic on where I applied to, because I did that research ahead of time. And what that research looks like is finding out what your non-negotiables are. So non-negotiables are just what Harrison spoke about. Like he talked about flexibility, right? He has all these different obligations. So quite naturally, he's probably going to want to work in an environment that is, remote first or hybrid, or he can have somewhat of a flexible schedule. So that might be a non-negotiable. If you know that you plan on having a family at some point, and maternity or paternity leave is really, really important to you, companies actually list those benefits on their website. So make sure you do that research ahead of time to see if that is something that they offer. Even if you have certain beliefs directly, or you represent a certain group or a demographic, if that company shows that they are actively supporting that demographic during a specific month, a heritage month or whatnot, then that might be something that you want to look into as well. So all that research literally starts with looking at their actual their business page, going to their About Me section, looking up those values that Kim spoke about, even down to vulnerability. And then also looking at how they engage with their audience during different times that may be sensitive to you. So something that I talk about a lot, I think Tamara talks about it a lot as well, is just those who are neurodivergent or who have any type of disability, whether that be ADHD, anxiety, what have you, because those are things that we resonate with, and those are things that are important. So a lot of you all reached out to me to figure out like why I always have these, jigsaw puzzles and everything that's my personal brand. And it has a lot to do with just my beliefs, a few different things, right? So number one, I'm a connector. I'm a people connector, because this is how we got here, right? And a puzzle does what? It connects things. And number two, I have a lot of people in my family that are neurodivergent. I'm neurodivergent myself, meaning I have anxiety. Like, it's a real thing. Like, Kim actually had to talk to me. Like, I took 2 showers because I was sweating so bad and everything. Like, it's a thing. Like, I really have anxiety, but I also like people a lot, so I push past that. But that does not make me bad at my job. It makes me better at my job because I can actually push past those things, and I can resonate with those who actually feel the same way. Also, you guys may have seen just certain personal things in my life that I've had family members that have actually suffered from mental health disorders or mental breakdowns and all that good stuff. So coming to a company, one of the things that I look for is, do you support those who, do you have like a mental health day? Do you actually offer like those free visits to a psychiatrist or psychologist when you are to your staff? We call that an EAP plan. Do you have that? Employee assistance program. Those are all things that I look for in organizations, in addition to other benefits, before I make that call. So look at those things first when you're trying to narrow down which companies that you want to apply to, and then also try to tie that to your previous skill set, like Denzel spoke about.
I want to say, oh, you're going, Denzel? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely piggybacking off of that. Like, I tell people to be picky when it comes to where they're going to work. And I know we're all eager because a lot of us are transitioners, and the advice is just get in the door, because after that, it's going to be easier to get another role. But I will say be picky. Just like Aaliyah did, I made sure that wherever I was going to work, I did all the research. Okay, on the About Me section, there's a part that talks about how long people stay at the company. And this is an interesting insight. It's called median. What's the median length that people stay at a certain company? And that was one of the questions I asked, actually, when I interviewed. Okay, well, I see people normally stay here for about 2 years or 6 months. Why do you think that is? My SDR experience was so stressful to me because the onboarding was really tough, and I realized that wherever I go, I'm going to need support. I have ADHD, as you know, we're talking about that, and it really affects me because I need to I get overwhelmed, and then that's when my anxiety kicks in, when it's too much disorganization, and especially coming into a new role where I'm actually having to use more of the cognitive skills. It was really hard for me. And so I wanted to find a place that I would feel supported, that the team and support looks very, it can look different to different people. But for me, it was, okay, do I have mentorship? Is there somebody I can talk to openly about this? Applications start asking, or jobs start asking, like, are you neurodivergent, or do you have any of these disabilities? I was afraid to say yeah, because I don't want it to count against me. But I had talks with my managers and the people on my team, like, hey, I may misunderstand something every once in a while, or I may not communicate something clearly, but please just let me know. Is this a safe space that I can do this? And at my company, I found that is it. And I didn't have as many offers as Aaliyah, but I did have another offer. And the deciding factor was like, okay, where do I feel that I can really be myself, and it'd be okay, and I can grow, and people will mentor me and take that time. I need a more nurturing environment, especially to start off with. Other people, they probably will thrive in a startup type of situation. I realize that I don't like ambiguity. I know that's something we should like. You're supposed to say, I can move with the flow. No, I cannot. You're supposed to say that to recruiters and stuff, but I realize I do not. I like to know what's going to happen. And can I change or go with change? Yes. But it is important for me to know that, to know what's going to happen, for there to be some kind of structure. So at this point in my career, this early time of my career, I need somewhere that will have that support. So that's something that I looked at. Am I going to have that support? Do they have COBs at my company's COB, diversity groups? Because that's something that's really important to me. Or did they just start one this year? That's a red flag to me. Are you just starting it because it's a part of like the new culture? Or have you had one forever? Or have you had that? Is that a part of your core values? These are things that I look at. And this is what I mean by being picky. Yes, you may try to just take the first offer you get. No, because maybe the other company offers you more money, but will you be happy? Are you going to have to leave there like in a couple months or look somewhere else? You have to start thinking about these kinds of things. And that's the kind of picky I mean. But I won't talk. I could talk forever. So sorry, y'all. I'll let y'all go.
I want to add one thing. I'm looking at a lot of the comments in the chat, and just as far as revisiting the topic of breaking into tech. So I do want to share. I will be a little selfish and talk about what I look for at Salesforce as a specific solutions engineer recruiter. That's all I hire on a daily basis, and I'll talk to SE candidates every single day. And so those that are looking to either break into this industry or maybe even make the transition specifically to Salesforce, the things that are important to us are three main buckets. The first one is pre-sales. What is your pre-sales experience, and or what is your level of consulting or customer-facing experience? How can you communicate what you've done in the past to make it look like you've done some level of customer-facing in your past roles? Two, what is your level of industry experience? Salesforce is a huge company, so a lot of the organizations that we hire for are very siloed. So I specifically support financial services. However, we have healthcare, education, services, Canada, small business, and a lot of other different organizations that hire solutions engineer for those specific vertical customers. So what is your depth of experience within that specific industry? And that's probably the best place for you to apply, depending upon your background. And then the third thing is going to be, what is your level of experience with the technology, with the Salesforce technology? So whether that be as a user in the CRM or someone that spent time in Trailhead, which I tried to add in our comment section. Hopefully you all saw that, but that's our public and free training platform. You can go create a profile at any time. I use it myself every single day. I spend about 30 minutes on it, just getting myself up to date with different technologies and services that Salesforce offers our different customers. But that's free. You can use it at any given time to get yourself up to speed on the technology, which is a very big selling point in the interview process, especially if you have not used it in the past. And those are the three buckets. Those are only their things. And then going back to the LinkedIn profile, the things that I search for on a daily basis are exactly what Aaliyah was talking about. I am searching for those different titles, whether it be solutions consultant or pre-sales or something along those lines. And then keywords like customer facing, demo, the specific industry, achieve. There's not a lot. I don't really add a lot to my searches. There's a few things that I know most strong candidates are going to typically have in their profiles, but feel free to connect with me. I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn every single day. So I am definitely open to answering questions that those have after the session.
I do want to piggyback, well, not piggyback, but I just want to talk about, because you did get us back focused in terms of interviewing. So, they tend to have, especially in pre-sales, a couple of rounds, some more than others. But the last thing you will have to do, or the second to last thing you'll have to do, is like a technical challenge or a demo. And I want to kind of stress this point. I personally do not believe, and now my alumnus school is going to kill me for this, but I don't think you need to go to a boot camp to do this, right? You don't. It will help you, it will set you up, and could set you back some money too. I think the important things that you need to learn are, if you could take away anything from this, networking, learning about your role, like really digging in, and learning how to demo. And demoing is, you're pretty much showing, Aaliyah explained it, you're pretty much showing a product. You're connecting feature to value or function to value. What is important, and especially when you're transitioning, because a lot of you will not have all the technical experience, be an amazing storyteller. How can you tell the story to a day in the life of the customer? How can you walk them through how your solution is going to solve their problem and make their day a lot better? If you can successfully tell a story, connecting the value, not just showing, and this is where I go here, this is where I click this is where I click that. If you can show the value, you need this because it will save time. You need this because time saves money. This, blah, 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 blah. If you can do that, that speaks volumes. Yes, you need the technical skills, but I would even say more than that, like, especially as a transitioning person, how can you tell the story? How can you communicate that? Also, there are tons of resources. YouTube's your best friend. There are tons of people demoing the products on YouTube. So just to get an idea of what that looks like, because I know none of us are like, we're not used to this, right? But you can do that, and then just see how you can expand upon that, especially like as Harrison was saying, like what's it called? Salesforce, they have a sandbox you can play around in, and you can learn. I would say Salesforce, if you want to learn anything, that's the best tech. Somebody asked that question earlier, that you could probably learn, because almost every sales company and marketing too, a lot of people use Salesforce. And so if you can learn how to use it, add it to your resume as one of your tech stack, and even demo that sets you apart. It helps you stand out. So I guess that's my point.
Yeah, I was going to just add on that really quickly, like for people asking to learn technical skills, like there's all these free resources out there. I mean, generally speaking, if it's a SaaS product, you need to understand what front end integrations and back end is, and that's pretty much it. Database, user interface, and how you connect it all. That's why you'll hear API like 200 million times. We can API, just use the API.
I think another thing that you can really focus on is learning how to ask deeper questions. And so that's a major thing that, especially as an SDR or an AE, is, the demo is important, but that's not really what your focus is going to be. Your focus is going to be, how can I pull the pain out of these customers so that I can help them see the business value of the solution that I'm actually presenting them. You're going to do that by the questions that you're going to be asking. You can showcase that in an interview, like Kimberly said, by coming armed with questions. If you can't ask questions in an interview, more than likely, you're probably not going to ask questions to a prospect. And being able to actively listen to your interviewer and then ask questions as you are having a conversation with them about, some of the things on your resume, can be very important. As an AE, you do typically go through a demonstration phase where you have to demonstrate something to become an AE for an organization, or even to become an SDR. I was just doing a role play last night with someone who reached out to me on LinkedIn, who was interviewing for a job. And one of the things about the role play is they had a list of criteria that they had to actually complete in order to successfully do this demonstration for this interview they were doing. So having someone to actively listen to you, show you how to ask questions, even if you connect with one of us. I'm not sure if anyone else on here will do it, but if you connect with me, I will sit aside 30 minutes and go over role plays. I will go over some of the best type of questions you could probably ask, or that I think that would be a good question that you could ask. Or you can ask me questions and we can just kind of roll through it. But it's just being comfortable talking to people, talking about something that you don't understand fully yet. That's going to be the most important, that you're willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and come out of it, right? Asking the right questions. They don't have to be the perfect questions, but did you come up with something to ask? Did you go deeper than what you just saw on the website? Are you thinking more critically, so that you can actually showcase, I can at least understand what you're going to eventually teach me when I get the job anyway. Because let's be real, when you start a job, you don't know what the technology is. I didn't know anything about the cybersecurity stuff that I sell now. I learned about SIM solutions when I started working. Now I can talk about it, And so, but it's the fact that I'm able to show that I can learn it by the questions I can ask, by taking something. When I did my presentation for the job I currently have, they asked me, they said, pretty much you can demonstrate anything you want to do. So I demonstrated how to make an omelet. Literally, I showed them how to make bacon and eggs on my demonstration interview. But it wasn't the fact that I made the bacon and eggs. It was the fact that as I was demonstrating this, I was asking them questions. I was engaging them in the actual process of me showing them, this is how you make my version of a Western omelet. And
Sounds good.
they were engaged. They were deep into it. And
Denzel, you're making me hungry.
Yes,
it worked. So there's plenty of people on YouTube who you can go to and watch and see how they ask questions. That's what I did. That's what a lot of people will do. I mean, Zoom Info, I worked there for a little bit. If you go on their website, they have a full out playbook of a go-to-market playbook that you can literally read through of how to basically be an SDR. And I can tell you right now, SDRs at Zoom Info grind, because it's a business that where you're going to get in there and you're going to really grind out for that money that you're about to be making. And so use those playbooks, learn from them. You know, all these resources are free. They have a free version of Zoom Info that you can use. Go use it. Learn how to do it, because a lot of times you're going to get these jobs. You're going to be asked to use some of these tools. But if you can come up to an interview and say, hey, I know how to use Zoom Info. I know how to use, LinkedIn Sales Navigator or anything else that they have out there. Like, you have too many resources not to come armed, So, yeah, that's my little 2 cents.
And to that last point, and I will stop talking, I promise, guys. Handling objections is super important.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I think, Kimberly, you were saying earlier that they told you you're too qualified for the position. And on the other side of it, a lot of people will tell you in interviews, well, we're looking for someone with more experience. And what I would say to that is, I mean, definitely chime in if you have a different opinion, but I've heard that lots of times as well. But what I did was I objected. And part of handling an objection is empathizing. You first empathize. I hear what you're saying, and I could see how someone in your position will, could think that. However, and then you go and take what they said and find the positive. Just like when they ask you that question, tell me about a time or something positive about yourself and something negative. You always make that negative positive at the end. So if someone tells me, well, I'm just worried that you don't have enough experience. I mean, we're looking for someone with this. Yeah, I totally understand that. However, let me tell you about a time that I was the new person, and we've all been the new person, right? How did you feel when that one person gave you a chance? Well, this is my opportunity. It's not something I'm going to squander. I have a track record of learning a full opera. And have you done that? It's kind of the same thing. I've learned a different language, and it's just like learning a coding language. They take the same amount of effort, skill. I basically took what I had and made it so that they would literally say, you know what? I see. And I had that happen. A guy was like, well, we're looking for a platform architect. So someone with a lot of tech skills. We're losing someone who knows coding, who knows this, blah, 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 blah. And he was not impressed. And then I was like, well, you know what? How about this? What does your onboarding look like? Because I know I'm a great learner. So how are you guys at supporting me? If you can pay for it, if you can pay for that course, I'm going to learn it and I will rock your minds. I just transitioned, always being able to be equipped with an objection. And then on the other end of that is they're also seeing your skills. So if they're hiring an SDR, wow, this person can, or an AE, this person can handle an objection because you just demonstrated that. So in your interviews and in your work, you need to learn how to take what they're saying and find a way, empathize, and then find a way to spin it back so you can, handle that objection.
I think we're just saying, what was the lesson learned and how did it, help you grow or develop in your career and in your role moving forward. So it's okay to have that negative moment or have that, let's say, negative feedback, but then to use that as a learning opportunity to have us evolve and to grow and to learn from, I think is another powerful thing that you can add to that part as well.
Thank you all so much. So We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But before we do, it's one last thing I wanted to share with you all. I see a lot of comments asking for people's LinkedIns. If you go to the original post for the event where you registered, you can actually click on more details and you can see all of the panelists. They're all there, and some of them have actually shared their LinkedIns in this chat. So please connect with them there. If you all have reached out to anybody by inbox or connected, please give them some time to respond, myself included, and we'll do our best to get back to you as well. Last thing, this is a very important first question that I've even spoke about many different times on my page, is the tell me about yourself question that a lot of people ask at the beginning. So quick little tidbit, and Kim, you can let me know if this is true or not, and Harrison as well. A lot of times you're asked that question because the recruiter wants to really know, or the hiring manager wants to know how your skills relate back to that role. So the tell me about yourself is not that you have 2 children, a dog, and you like to go fishing. You can talk about that with the actual hiring manager, but this is the pre-screening call to see if you're a good fit for the role. So you want to talk about your education, your background, that is relevant experience. So even if you come from a different industry, you can just talk about your experience being customer facing, problem solving, etc., and then tie it back into why you're interested in that role and how your skill set can fit. So I wanted to leave that gem with you all there. And again, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to meet with me. Also, all of the advice that you all have given me on my journey as I continue with this. I appreciate you all so much. We're definitely going to do this again. I might do it again with these same individuals because these technical issues kind of mess me up. I like y'all. So we're definitely going to do this again. I appreciate you all taking some time out. Before we close up, Harrison, do we have any upcoming recruitment events specifically to Salesforce that you want to tell anybody about?
No, not off the top of my head. I did look into that before our conversation. But I would certainly encourage everyone just to follow Salesforce on LinkedIn. There's more networking taking place than I can even keep up with. But everything is updated via LinkedIn and Salesforce's page.
All right, excellent. And let's see. Denzel, do you have any closing thoughts?
I would say you will see a lot of, organizations right now laying people off and things of that sort. Don't let that discourage you. Make yourself different. Do whatever you got to do to show yourself to be different than every other person who's applying for these roles, because you got to think you're not only up against individuals who just finished the boot camp or who just are trying to transition, but you're also up against people who just lost their jobs, who are already in their role. So just make yourself more marketable and, make yourself, make yourself stand out, even if that means if you're looking for an SDR role, go to their website, see what kind of ideal customer profile would more than likely buy from them, and create cold outreach emails and send them to the SDR managers and say, hey, this is how I'm different. This is what I would do coming in. This is some of the accounts that I thought could be beneficial for you guys. Even if they're already accounts, it shows that you've already looked into, how you can potentially do something for the organization that you want to work for. It's a way to stand out. Create a 30, 60, 90 plan. Say, hey, this is what I'm going to do in the first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And this is, even if you've never, had an interview with these guys, I would still send it to someone just to say, I'm ready to get in there and do the job, and that'll open somebody's eyes. Don't give up. You're going to hear no's more than you're going to hear yes, but even when you become a SDR or AE or SE, you're going to hear more no's than you hear yes anyway. So just get used to it, and just be able to fight through it.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So again, thank you all for just taking some time to share your wealth of knowledge with everyone here. And I appreciate you all. So I don't want to hold everybody up. Denzel made me hungry with that omelet story. So I think I might make me some breakfast because I'm in the South. We eat breakfast all the time. So
don't matter.
Yeah, any time of the day.
Waffle
House, the clean Waffle House. The clean Waffle House.
Them chickens waiting for me right now. So
right. So again,
I got Bojangles. Bojangles is sitting right over there. I've been smelling it the whole time.
I'm so sorry. But I'm hungry. So we're going to thank you all again for your time. Just a few quick announcements. I am hosting another Breaking into Tech Pre-Sales, Tech Sales. We're actually going to add a post-sales role to this as well, so you all can learn about that. So we'll be doing this again. Will it be next month? Will it be Q1? I'm not exactly sure yet, but we have a lot of great individuals that are interested in joining. Again, this is a shameless plug for myself. I'm actively looking for my next role as a pre-sales engineer, sales engineer, solutions, whatever. So y'all hit me up. I know I've gotten offers, but obviously they weren't the right ones for me. So I'm looking for the right team. So you all reach out. If you all need examples of a demo, it is one on my page, and you all have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.